Welcome to another edition of the On Air series for the Citi Business Edition. This week we're focusing on SMEs. And today we're talking about how to build a winning SME team. My guest is one of our favorites from Busara, Africa, in the person of Taaka Awori. Taaka, good to have you.
I'm always excited to be here with you, Bernard.
You're always up to something new. Always up to something. How are you doing?
I'm well, busy,
Wonderful.
but well.
Helping people develop.
Yes, indeed. Bringing out the best in them as leaders.
Wonderful. And you are a people person. So your organization adds value to people.
For sure.
Wonderful.
For sure.
We want to talk about SMEs and team building. Usually when we talk of team building, we discuss big teams.
Yes.
So large organizations, they talk organizational development. But I feel SMEs, the ones I interact with, they struggle with keeping people.
Yes.
And a lot of my friends who run SMEs say, Bernard, how do I train somebody, I get him into the team, he gets all the skills, and then he disappears.
Yes.
So so maybe we need to start thinking about these small organizations and how they manage people as well.
Yes, indeed. And maybe one of the things we also need to think about is when people come and go, it's how do you institutionalize knowledge, culture, systems, processes, so that everything is not dependent on one person. And that's usually the challenge we have as SMEs. It's all about one person who has all the skills in their heads. So I think that's a key thing. We need to institutionalize, put systems in place so that as people come and go, and that will happen. That's just a reality. People come in, you can't pay them as much, they move into bigger institutions. So recognize that we're at your level. You may be a stepping stone to other organizations. You make peace with that and just make sure that you don't lose when they move on.
We've had a bit of that, and I'll ask you about that later. But let's start with definitions. When we say a winning team, what do we mean?
Okay. So it's also important to distinguish between a team and a group. And so I always say a team, a group of people who perform interdependent tasks to achieve a shared goal. So people just sitting in an office all together, that doesn't necessarily make them a team. So if they have a shared purpose and they're somewhat interdependent. So they could be functional. So the production, your whole production group here, I see, could be a team because they're all, their particular sales department, that's a functional group. Or a team could be a group that you pull together here at Citi FM to say, okay, we're having the boot camp. So we need about 4 or 5 people who are going to be focused for 5 months to plan, execute, and they may come from different departments to make it happen. That's a team that's focused around a task. So that's what we mean by a team. Now, you really asked me about a winning team, because not every team is a winning team. Some are very dysfunctional teams.
Yes.
So 3 things make a team a winning team. Number 1, they achieve sustained results. So not just results today, hey, hi, and then things go wrong and then they can't. So achieve sustained results. Number 2, they maintain team resilience. Because we recognize no matter what challenges will come. So when challenges come, how resilient is the team to be able to bounce, not just back, but forward? And the final thing, they're vital. And this is important in terms of, when I mean they have vitality, let me clarify that. It means they have a lot of positive energy. And the reason I emphasize this, Bernard, is because I've seen teams that can achieve results, but they're toxic. I mean, by the time people have worked with that team to put on a show, to achieve this thing, they're burnt out, they're stressed, and they're on verge of... That's not the kind of vitality that we're talking about.
I like the resilience, because that suggests they've been through challenges.
Yes.
And they've been through fights together.
Yes.
And they're still... So it means a team... one of the ways in which a group becomes a team is also overcoming adversity together.
For sure. And learning how to do that, because that's not always self-evident.
So as I said, some of the leaders I talk to complain about different things, but have you been able to isolate some of the key challenges leaders have with teams?
Yes. Lots, for sure. But let me bring out 3 that I've seen. One of the first ones is, and I may ask you if you've had to deal with this one before, particularly given the business that you're in, is managing star players or divas who won't play nice. They don't collaborate, they're egocentric, they don't deliver, they deliver results, so we don't hold them accountable. Do you know, I remember one of the toughest questions you asked me. It could have been about 7 years ago, and you said, Taaka, what do you do? And you asked me, Taaka, do you watch football? And then you said, what do you do in a situation where you have one player who always scores goals, But in terms of values, he treats the other players like dirt. He doesn't share. He doesn't respect time. But they deliver results.
What do you do?
What do you do? And it's the same thing I've seen sometimes in this business. So you may have one key host or a key person.
Look, I used to be like that a lot. So usually morning show hosts are the prima donnas.
There you go.
So the MD would not shout at you because you're the goose that lays the golden egg.
There you go.
So when sales comes with a challenge, you are always like difficult to work with.
There you go.
Programs, there's always tension. And sometimes the host can play between the two sides. So sales want to drive numbers. Programs also want audience. And then you have the host basically just incorrigible.
There you go.
But because his personality is so strong, people listen. So a lot of morning show hosts have that tendency. So I can say for many years I was...
Oh, wow.
So, and of course, as you mature into the job, you sort of get it. And then there are different ways of honing that. But so I won't even point fingers.
You can look at yourself.
I am that man.
You were
I was that man.
You see? And it's powerful that you have matured beyond that. But many don't. So you can imagine what a headache that was at the time to manage you. Because you bring in revenue. So it keeps leaders awake at night. So that's one. So the divas, prima donnas.
Okay.
The second one is about managing conflict within the team. And there are all kinds of conflicts. There's task-based conflict, where as long as you and I are interdependent, because that's the whole thing about being in a team. So in order for me to achieve results, I need you to do X, Y, Z. So if you don't do it, then I'm dropped the ball. So it's those kinds of conflicts. There's work style conflicts. You can imagine I might be a lastminute.com type person, whereas you might be somebody who wants things done early. That might bring a conflict. But also personalities. So managing inherent conflict that comes by just having people who are different, doing different things. That's another huge stress. And what I see too many leaders do is they avoid. They just don't deal with it. So it becomes bigger issues. So that's one. That's the second. The third big one I've seen is where there's a lack of trust within the team. So little things start fostering, they become issues, then people don't trust each other. They don't share information. They don't feel like each other have their back. So you as a leader, you come and you're like, why was this thing not done? And they're like, oh, well, so-and-so didn't share information. When you start to ask, well, why didn't they share information? Why didn't you help so-and-so out? Somehow they don't trust each other. So those are some of the common challenges.
My reflection on that, for the issue of conflict, as you said, you try and deal with it when it's small before it gets big.
That's it.
So a lot of times when you notice that this could become a problem, we don't wait for it to get big. That's what I try to do. Because don't forget, I work with a team. I work with many teams, hosting a morning show for almost that number of years. So one of the things is there could be conflict. Maybe this guy, he interrupted this guy during the show and he didn't get a bad... So you try and resolve. So usually when you have like a daily post-show meeting, you don't allow the issue to fester.
Exactly. This is it. So it's a key learning as a leader to deal with issues early.
When they are early,
when they're small.
And when they're small.
Early and small, and sometimes at the right time. You know, don't delay, but wait for the right time.
You're right, because sometimes, so you need to pick the best time. So because there are times maybe the mood is still sore.
Too bad, yes.
So when the person's in a good mood. And then the other thing about trust is, I feel like the most important attribute a leader needs is trust. So especially within my team, if they don't trust that I mean well, or that I have thought about what they want to do. So sometimes I can do something that hurts them, but because they trust me, they let it go. And I think that if I lose that's it. But that's my
sometimes, but also you have to build that trust. They have to have it amongst each other. Otherwise, they don't support each other. They don't have each other's backs. They undermine each other. That's why the trust becomes so important.
We're talking to Taaka Awori, and we're looking at building winning teams for SMEs, but really for all kinds of companies. She's already separated or distinguished a group from a team, given the features and some common challenges that leaders face. This is not an exhaustive list. There are many, many challenges as well. So what should a leader do?
Okay, to get a winning team. Many, many things, but I'm going to pick out very quickly 5. So the first one is one I always sing about. It's from Jim Collins. Get the right people on the bus. when you have the opportunity, select who join, and when you have the opportunity to select who joins the team, select well, choose well. Too often, we look just on experience and skills. We're looking at that nice CV. This one has a PhD from where, MBA from where. And yes, experience and skills and certifications matter. But you must also pay attention to values and attitudes, culture fit. So if you're particularly focusing on teamwork, a good principle that I picked up from Patrick Lencioni is he says, look for people who are humble, hungry, and smart.
I like that.
Humble because they've managed their egos, so they're willing to collaborate and work with others. Hungry because they're eager to learn constantly. They want to make a difference. They're not just set in their ways. And finally, naturally, you want folks who they're smart.
So humble, hungry,
and smart. Patrick Lencioni.
I have to write that down.
Yeah, because these are people who always be more concerned about the greater good than their own. Yeah, so select well. Again, when we invest too much time on degrees and experience, so focus on that fit. But that also means then, Bernard, that if someone is not the right fit, they're not being a good team player.
They gotta go.
They gotta go. You gotta get them off the bus. So learn how to get people off the bus. So that's the first one, yeah? Second one is about getting, let's continue with the bus metaphor, getting the right people in the right seats.
Okay.
I know you're such a football fan, so let me just use that football and disgrace myself. Thank you. They're in the right positions. Avoid putting square pegs into round holes. And then once you've done that, make sure everybody's clear about who's doing what. It seems so obvious, but I've seen so much conflict in teams where it's like, but I thought I was supposed to do that, but you told so-and-so to do that. But this one is taking my job. He's too known. Why is he doing all of that? So this avoids role conflict. But also people need to appreciate the interdependence of what they do. That becomes particularly key. How have you had to struggle with this one in terms of getting right people in the...
So I have two challenges. Because of what I do, I see people different. So I'm a morning show host.
Okay.
So I am looking for people who can help me deliver a conversation.
Okay.
Sometimes other people in the leadership are looking for different things. So one of the things we need to do is to synchronize our objectives, right? So for example, if you have a management team of a sales manager, a programs manager, a general manager, an HR manager discussing somebody to come and join me on the show, they are all solving from different parts. One of the things we try and do is to make sure you're on the same page.
There you go.
All right. Otherwise, we would all be... Because when I was in investment, I remember we had an executive committee where we were sort of choosing people to replace us. And there were lots of arguments because the secretary was looking for somebody who could do this. So everybody was looking for different people.
Yes.
So that's one. In my own choice of people to work with me, chemistry is very important. Chemistry is very important because it's very informal. So even though we're discussing national issues, you don't necessarily have to be tight friends, but it has to be
you have to flow. There needs to be, yes.
Because the cream flows to the top. So the best way to spawn good ideas is to have a conversation. So for example, during the commercial break, we're having a random conversation. Then something will come out. So I look out for those things, right? If I'm even looking for a numbers guy, I don't just want somebody who's just good behind a machine and can type a lot. I want somebody who is relatable because people can feel that.
Yeah, but do you see what you therefore have? You have clarity about what you're looking for.
Oh, yes.
And too often, I find that as SMEs, we don't invest enough time in that clarity. Or if when we do, because we may not be able to afford to pay for the kind of quality we're looking for, we go for, cheap and cheerful. But really, it's not what we're looking for. And so sometimes you need to get creative. So you might decide, this is what I'm looking for. I can't afford them full-time, but maybe I could afford them part-time while they do other things.
So we're also very flexible. That's a very good point because I noticed that in the talent industry, some of the best people do a lot of things.
Yes.
So you have to create space. I mean, one of my guys is a lawyer. He's doing his law.
Yes.
Another one writes for a certain magazine globally. They're doing all kinds of things because if you want to assemble the best, and the economy we're in, you have to be flexible.
That's it.
Right? But the point is that they should also not be skiving.
Yes, you have to manage them well.
So you can't kind of say, okay, well, I'm doing this, that, and that, and that, yeah. So I'm just going to give you 5 minutes of my time.
Yes.
When you are here, you have to be here.
Fully here.
Because I respect you first, and then you need to respect me as well.
Yes.
So that understanding has to be there.
Yes.
So that, yes, you are not here all day.
The time, yeah.
But when you are here, you have to be here.
To be fully here.
Yes.
And have clear deliverables and expectations.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a whole art to managing. It's like how you manage people who work remotely.
Yeah.
It's not the same way as having them all the time.
Yeah. We'll take a break here and come back. We're talking to Taaka Awori. We're just working our way through building winning teams for SMEs. Very, very important principle. She said, get the right people on the bus. We like the bus analogy. We're still within the point 2 or principle 2 of role selection and clarity. We'll deal with that when we come back and continue with other points. Stay with us. Welcome back to day 4 of our week 2. We're talking SME. My guest, Taaka Awori, Busara Africa, leading self, leading others with wisdom.
Yes.
She's released a new book, Leadership in Africa, a great read, less than 300 pages, about 280 something. You need to get that book and read. Really, really insightful book. Today we're talking about building a winning team from the SME's perspective. So on principle 2, you spoke about role selection and clarity, and I shared my own views about this. You said avoid putting square pegs in round holes.
Yeah.
What else do you have to say about the second principle?
I would just say that make sure people understand the interdependence of their roles. Huh? Again, we're talking about teams. Too many people want to act again like they're the individual soul. So getting people to recognize that what you deliver, what you do will affect other people. So yes, you need to have clarity on what your role is, but understand how your role will then affect somebody else's role. Huh? So be mindful of that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now let's come to the third principle.
So this is one that often we haven't been so used to, but it's around focusing on collective results.
Okay.
Now, for many of us who've been working in the formal space, we're used to holding people accountable on individual results. So continue to do that. So for instance, for you, Bernard, for each of the people that you're managing, continue to have individual objectives that you set at the beginning of the year, and then you hold them accountable on that. But what I'm saying is, to build a winning team, you complement that with establishing collective team results.
Wow.
Now imagine, therefore, that means you will complement the individual appraisals with team appraisals.
Wow.
So at the end of the year, and then we're going to talk through what that might look like in practice for you. At the end of the year or mid-year or actually periodically, you would be monitoring to say, as a team, how far have we gone in achieving these team objectives? That's one. But 2, each person on the team then gets appraised on their level of teamwork and collaboration within the team.
That's so powerful. I was just thinking about the camera crew here.
Okay.
So there's a light guy, there's a sound guy,
Okay.
there's a floor guy, there's a director, there's a producer.
Okay.
A lot of times you notice everybody's fighting their own corner. Once the sound is great, I'm okay. Once the light is great, I'm okay. So you're right. If we said, you know what, sound is great, light is great, floor is okay, but there's something wrong with what we saw on TV.
So what would be their team objective? How would you define it for them?
So the show must go without any production hitch.
There you go.
The right camera angles, the right shots, right, text.
There
And there are some things that weld together. So I'm very happy you're saying this. So it means that at the end of the day, we can evaluate the whole team.
Yes.
And it's possible for individuals to also do the right things.
Yes.
But because we're not working collaboratively, you will still have a poor outcome.
Yeah, if there was a hitch, then you're all responsible.
Because a good example is, let's assume the floor manager wants to bring something to the host.
Okay.
Right? And then she informs somebody up there, but doesn't inform another person behind the camera. He doesn't adjust his camera right, and then you have a problem.
Interdependence.
It's very, very critical.
Do you see?
Very powerful.
So when people, but it really takes shifting their minds because, as you said, most people are just focused, is my lighting right? Is the sound right? Is my camera right? Their own little thing. That's starting to say that, yes, I will ask you about the lighting, but I am also, all of you together, I'm going to say, did you achieve? How many shows went off without a hitch?
And this is very important for large organizations like, for example, for our business. A lot of times you have tensions between programs and sales. Do you get it? Because they sort of solve for different things. One depends on the other, though.
Yeah.
So it's very important for people in programs to know that at the end of the day, it's not about how great the program is. It also has to sell.
Yes.
Right? And then the sales guys will have to know that selling is great, but there has to be a certain raw material to sell.
Yes.
There's always tension there. So it's a very, very powerful point to make.
So you know what you would add to the team objective, in addition to having flawless production, how well they collaborated with other teams. Because this is the other thing I find in organizations. You have silos. Huh?
Yes.
So you might have a fantastic, as you said, program team, fantastic marketing team, but they're not speaking to each other. But if you add it to their team objective, they will organize themselves to say who continuously has to speak to that one, who has to speak, so that you are not just having strong teams, you're also having strong teams working within other teams in the organization.
And I think that depends a lot on the leader and the tone they set.
100%.
Because if you sort of pitch people against each other, then you are making a mistake. So what you try and do is to listen to everybody and say, look, by the way, you guys are on the same team.
Yes.
And then, as you said, you give them, you assess them on collective.
Totally.
Yes, I think it's very, very powerful point.
So that's the third one, yeah?
Collective results.
Then fourth one is coach them, back to your football, coach them to play well together. This is what you were alluding to earlier about, for instance, managing conflicts. Huh?
Yes,
that's the first one, yeah?
Yes, I think that's very important, because when you work in a talent-driven team, there's a lot of strong egos.
Yeesh.
And so one of the things you learn to do is to, what's the word to use? You diffuse.
Yes.
You don't suppress.
No.
Let people
That's
talk.
energy, yes.
But find a way of getting them to work together. I think it's actually a very strong leadership challenge.
Yes. And skill that needs to be developed,
Yes.
therefore.
Yes.
Facilitating. Because we always say in our world that conflict is not necessarily bad. It's how it's managed. Because conflict is natural. So therefore, a key leadership skill then, as you said, is to manage it, not put it under the table. Because what I see often in many of our organizations, particularly in an African context, we like this, what do we call it? I call it fake harmony.
Yes.
Where everybody says, hey, it's okay, it's okay, we're all fine.
There are underlying issues.
You step out of the meeting room, and then there's all the gossiping in the corridor. And so I think a key skill is to bring corridor conversation on gossip from the corridor to the boardroom or the proper formal space, so it can be dealt with in a healthy way. That's something that one has to do to build a winning team, as you coach them to play well.
Talking about coaching, I saw a very interesting quote about I think it's an American football team, and I think that the person said, good coaches have a pre-game plan.
Okay.
Great coaches do halftime adjustments. Thought I was
it's amazing because things happen. So you might realize I need a time adjustment to be able to deal with this issue. But you notice we're using the word coaching.
Yes.
Because there are different times where you might need to be directive as you're setting the vision.
Okay.
But when you're getting people to play well, yes, you may have to say you play this or you're out in terms of values. But there's a lot about understanding people, facilitating them, as you said, giving them space to speak, unearth issues. Otherwise, if you're just all about commanding, you push things under the table.
Are you distinguishing coaching from, say, managing? Is that what are you using coaching in a more
as a leadership? I'm using it as a leadership style.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you clearly see, if I see there's something going on with Bernard and Kojo, and then I'm not meaning you guys stop it. What will they do? They'll just cover up and they'll never let you see what's going on. But if I call them back in, a coaching style, you start with questions. Guys, what's going on? I want to hear you each. Then I ask them, how do you think you need to solve this?
Okay.
Do you see? So that's a lot more of a coaching style, which is useful when you want to get to the bottom of issues.
The question there, though, is a lot of leaders have many battles they fight.
Yeah.
So he's in charge of a small fintech.
Yeah.
He's dealing with government regulation.
I know.
The tax guys are on his neck, right? He strategized with his team and he believes they know where the business is going.
Yeah.
He says, I don't need this at this time, right? I have a big meeting with some guys who want to give us money, and my two managers can't work with each other. Like you're saying, be collaborative, coach them.
I know.
I don't
it takes
have time.
Like,
Why do I have to stop this big deal and kind of ask the two of you like kids? You know, it's almost like I just wanted to emphasize the importance of that, because a lot of leaders feel like, I don't want to waste, I don't have time for this.
Yes. And then they don't. And then it's like sharpening the saw.
Yeah.
When you have a winning team,
Yeah.
it's like you have a sharp saw to achieve the results. Huh?
Okay.
When your people are busy fighting, undermining each other, it's like you're working with a blunt saw. So yes, I fully appreciate you're busy, it's annoying, it's irritating, but it's worth it in terms of the better use. It's worth it in the long run. Let's call it that way. In the short run, it's expensive, but it's worth it in the long run. But let me emphasize this. Remember I talked in the beginning about at some point you might need to get people off the bus?
Yeah.
You coach, but not forever.
Okay.
Not forever.
Okay.
You coach in the beginning, but you're clear at the end. You're like, guys, this is how we roll around here. These are our values in this company. So I'm supporting you to work this out, but in a week, 2 weeks, I don't need to see this again. And if I see this behavior continuing after
So that's more intuitive. You know when this is...
Yes.
So maybe they cross a line, or it just gets in. It's not working.
That's it. That's it.
Not working.
And as you do that, please document. Keep writing. Yeah, because you don't want to get into trouble.
So you have memos, you have... So you need to... You don't just arbitrarily just get up.
No.
Of course, there are some offenses that you know. Theft, abuse. But you're saying that if it has to do with people's fit, you have to...
Exactly. Document. Show that you've coached. Show that you've tried. But it has to end at a certain point if it's
and I actually feel like, sometimes when you do it well, the person actually will thank you. Because there are instances where this person doesn't fit into this organization.
Totally.
But they feel like they have to work here because that's the only opportunity they have.
Yes.
If you do it properly, one day they'll come back and say, look, it was very good you fired me because it helped me rethink.
Yes.
So I think that's a very important process that should not be mismanaged.
Of course,
you can't cuddle people throughout, but you have to. Anyway, so this is point number 4. Coach them well to play together.
Yes.
And then, of course, communication is critical.
Yes, communication is critical. We've talked about clear values and expectations for all of them, yeah? Let me come to the last one. Yeah. It's something you've alluded to. It's creating a conducive environment for them to thrive. And let me give you an example. I worked with a team leader once who, she had an absolutely amazing team, collaborating fantastically. But they worked in a bigger company that was literally cutthroat, competitive, toxic, undermine. So each time the team would try and do things differently, they'd get back into the bigger, company atmosphere, and they'd be like, nah, this is not working. Yeah? The other thing that they would also see is that, just what you alluded to, you're saying, as leaders, you have to set the tone for what needs to happen within other teams. So we talked about breaking silos. So having different departments start to work with each other. If they can see that within the senior management team, they are not working together, they are not a team, why do you expect that the different... Exactly. So the conducive environment means, one, you model it right from the top, but the broader organizational culture has to be one that's collaborative and rewards collaboration. It's not rewarding the divas, what did you call them, the ones who are always the prima donnas. If people start to see that that's what's rewarded in the organization, and collaboration is seen as, you are a wuss, why are you even doing that, who cares about that, then they won't do that. So it's create an enabling environment for that to happen. Provide resources for the team to succeed, coach them, all of that. So that's the final principle.
So there's a responsibility on leadership, not just the atmosphere, but also the resource.
That's it.
The resources for them to work.
make sure that they thrive. Otherwise, they get frustrated, and they're like, what's even the point? So again, perfect example. You put a team together to organize the staff retreat. You give them no resources, no time, no backing. They'll be like, what's the point? We can't even do this thing well. It's just going to be a failed achievement. So that's the kind of resourcing and support teams.
So you're giving me 5 bullet points for building winning teams. We can just go through for those who tune in late or those who have not been following.
So number 1, get the right people on the bus. Select the right people to be part of the team. Don't just look for expertise and skills. Also look for the right fit in terms of attitude and values. Number 2, Get the right people in the right seats. Make sure people are playing to their strengths. They're in the right roles. Number 3, focus on collective results. Don't just appraise people on their individual, compliment by ensuring they're praised against team collaboration and achieving things collectively. 4, coach them to play well together, particularly paying attention to things like conflict. And 5, create a conducive environment for them to thrive.
So to end, of all the things a company has, from the idea itself to its physical resources, to the product, and to its people, would you seriously say that the people are the most important resource?
100%.
You don't even blink an eye?
I don't even blink an eye. I don't even blink an eye. It's all about your people. It is all about
irrespective
your
of the
people.
industry.
Well, no, it depends on the industry. No, for sure. I mean, if your thing is about selling widgets, then maybe it's about the quality of your widgets, but you still need people to sell them.
But generally, you
put them
say that
central. They should always be
people,
central. And so that's why, to me, leadership is about people.
My reflection, I was talking to the team last week, and it just occurred to me that of all the resources of a company, people are the only resource that appreciates. And I was saying that, for example, if you bought a car, or you built a studio, or you bought a camera, as soon as you buy it, it begins to depreciate.
That's
But the
powerful.
only thing that, so you could pick somebody who started out as a security guy, you train him to do floor management, now he's a camera guy, he's a director. So in 10 years, you've added value to the person. So I was like, if human beings are the most important resource, they basically means they are the ones that can appreciate in value.
But the key word is they can.
If you
do the right thing, if you have the right leadership like you have done.
Yes.
But I have
We
walked
try.
into
It's not
companies.
easy.
It's not easy,
No,
I
it's
know.
not. We try.
But you walk into companies and people have depreciated.
That is funny, because for me, I would have said that if you are in a company that's not adding value to you, you have to leave.
But you
Or if
know
you're
the
not
reality
growing-
of the economy. People will always say, but
if you're not growing in an organization, then you have to have an exit plan.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So because my personal view is that there's always somewhere that you will thrive.
For sure.
And the point is that you may not always start from there.
Sure.
So you could be in an organization that has nothing to do with your skill sets, but there are a few things you have to learn.
Sure.
So you can still give off your best.
Sure.
But
And you can still be willing to learn and look for
Exactly.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Because to me, progression and appreciation is not necessarily about always moving up. Because with SMEs, we're fairly flat.
Yeah.
How many levels can you actually move up? But if you're learning new things, if you're gaining exposure, if you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, then you can say you've appreciated.
I set out to interview, but it looks like you've interviewed
Yes,
me.
I have. It's always a joy.
That was your plan.
That was my plan.
Anyway, it's a good idea, because sometimes in discussions, more insights come up.
Yes.
I've been talking to Taaka Awori of Busara Africa. Before you go, though, how can people get in touch with you? What's your website? How can people reach you?
So it's busara-africa.com. And do connect with me also on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, all using my name.
So that's Taaka Awori.
Yes.
And Busara, Busara, Africa.
Africa.
Dash is very important.
Africa.com.
Wonderful. Thank you for listening
Thank
to
you.
another edition of the show. My name is Bernard Avle.